What's going on, guys? Aaron from Top Tier Gaming here, and today I am bringing you my Gren Maju deck that I actually managed to get first place with at my locals tournament this last Saturday. And yeah, we played 5 rounds of Swiss. We had over 20 people, so it was like a decently sized tournament for our locals. And yeah, it was a really good time. I'm sort of playing this deck because I was really expecting Konami to like release a ban list, but since they didn't, I was kind of peeved, so I chose the most disgusting thing I could play, which happens to be this Gren Maju list. So if that does sound interesting to you, you will definitely enjoy this profile. This list is 48 cards, so I might as well get that out of the way. I guess I'll do my rounds before the deck profile just really quickly. Again, 5 rounds of Swiss. I played a Bird Up, a Sword Soul, which was what I lost to in the finals, but I was actually undefeated going into the last round, so I still managed to get first place. Also played against a Altergeist, and I played against, I believe, 2 rogue decks, which I've now forgotten because I'm actually recording this Sunday night. I've had a whole different tournament since then, but yeah, we managed to take first place with this list, and I think it's a really cool list. So without further ado, let's get into the deck profile. Alright, at the end of the deck profile, I will be doing, a test hand to show you guys what sort of hands you can expect with this deck. So if that does sound interesting to you, stay tuned till the end of the deck profile. And yeah, we're going to start it off with the namesake of the deck, 3 Gren Maju. So this is sort of the key card of the deck, and pretty much, like, if your deck is running this card, your deck gets the name Gren Maju because he sort of becomes the focal point of the deck. And what I like about this card is it's a normal summon that's like not terrible going second, because he just gets so huge. Like, I summoned him, I think the highest attack I got him to this last weekend was 16,000, and I mean 16,000 attack Gren Maju is just hilarious. I had one game where I activated a Desires one turn, it got Ash, and the next turn I activated Desires and just normal summoned Gren Maju and attacked for game, because 2 Desires is 8,000 attack Gren Maju, and it's just so hilarious how big this card gets and how good he is at outing things like Tower-esque cards, things like the Arrival Cyburst or Herald of Ultimateness. You can just summon Gren Maju sometimes and just swing over him. He actually gets so ridiculously huge, and he is sort of just the star of the deck, and there's a lot of cards that have great synergy with Gren Maju. But now for sort of the main monster of the deck, it is definitely the Inspector Boarder. I don't think I mentioned it, but this is Trap Gren Maju, so it is more focused on being a like stun variant with very control-y cards and a lot of traps. And yeah, Inspector Boarder is one of the most ridiculous floodgate monsters in the game. It pretty much shuts down so many decks. I mean, Phantom Knights can do stuff if they open like Junk Forward or have some inherent normal summons, or I mean inherent special summons like the Wielder and stuff. But decks like Floowandereeze, Sword Soul, there's almost nothing they can do to this card at all. It just shuts them down entirely. And yeah, this card is absolutely insane and definitely something you want to find very quickly. Next up, we have the 3 Gizmek Orochi. This is just a card that facilitates Gren Maju, but it is also just a big body that can help this deck do damage, because that's something before Burst of Destiny it definitely lacked, but after Burst of Destiny, this card and one other card really helped this deck deal a lot of damage outside of Gren Maju. Orochi is just infinite. He can come back every single turn just by banishing the top 8 cards of your deck face down, which again, we're on 48, which is essentially 1 free Orochi. I finish a lot of games with like 4 or 5 cards in deck, to where if I was running any less than 48, I would have decked out and lost. And it's because Orochi and Desires are just eating away at your deck the whole time, right, to facilitate Gren Maju. And Orochi is just super good at, being able to wall up or help clear boards or just get in big damage and facilitate Gren Maju along the way. We are on this Gizmek Makami, so he's an interesting card. He's a cool little tech you can play. If you don't know what he does, on summon you can discard a monster to add a monster with the same attack and defense from your deck to your hand, which is any Gizmek monster being Orochi. It can also add Inspector Boarder because his attack and defense are both 2000. It cannot add Gren Maju because his attack is question mark. And the next card after this is another really cool card you can search with him, which I really like, and it was an interaction I didn't even think of when I put him in, but it's nice that it came up. And then when he's destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can return 6 banished cards to the deck. So if you banish like 3 Gren Maju off your Desires, you can put them back to deck with this, which is really nice. Also, he's level 6, so the way you summon him, if you have 6 or more banished cards, you can just normal summon him without tributing. So he's actually a really nice one-of tech. You don't see him very often, but it's just another card. It would mean like you have to banish 4, like 3 Gren Maju and him to be out of Gren Majus in your deck. So I do like that he essentially adds more Gren Majus if they get banished. And then next up is Lord of the Heavenly Prison. This card was a gigantic boost to this deck after Burst of Destiny, and it's the other card that this Makami can actually search because the attack and defense of this card are both 3000. This card's insane. You're almost always setting like a Desires or an Extravagance off of this card when you resolve it, but it just protects your back row, which you run a lot of. And yeah, this card is just a monster, right? It does so much for trap decks. It's pretty obvious we'd want to be on 3 of this. There's an argument for 2, but since we are on 48 cards, I just want to maximize it at 3. Alright, on to spells, one of my favorite parts of the deck. We have the 3 pot of Extravagance, the 3 pot of Desires, and the 3 pot of Duality. So you can play whatever pots you kind of want here. I recommend 2 of the more restrictive pots like Extravagance and Desires because I don't want to run Prosperity over the Dualities because Prosperity conflicts with both of these, right? If you activate either of these, you can't activate Prosperity. But if you play Duality, it sort of doesn't conflict with either of these pots, right? You can Extravagance into Duality and still use it, unlike Prosperity. You can Duality into Desires and then still use it. And yeah, that's really good, and I enjoy that a lot. But if this was Prosperity, it wouldn't work that way. Now, you can run Prosperity over Extravagance or Desires. I just prefer the multiple cards they give me. So I am running these as my 9 pot cards of choice. And then lastly, for spells, we are on 1 Called by the Grave because, I mean, we're on 9 pots. So, you know, if they draw Ash and you have Desires and Called by the Grave, I mean, you just sacked out their Ash Blossom, which is really great. But also, this is just one of the best interruptions in the game, I think, as well. This card is just generically very, very good. So, might as well play the Called by the Grave. Alright, now on to traps. We were playing the traps sort of in little mini packages. So, we're going to start with, like, our counter trap lineup here, which is 3 Solemn Judgment, which I think is very obvious in one of these trap heavier lists. 3 Solemn Strike. Now, this is our Solemn Brigade here. Solemn is just so good at stopping all the very powerful cards you don't want to deal with. We're maining it for any, main deck blowout cards, which, tend to exist, but also it's just a really powerful card to protect Inspector Border and your other back row in general from, whatever power play your opponent has. This card was sort of glued to my hand this weekend, and I think that was part of the reason for my success is Solemn Judgment really liked me, and it was just a very powerful card. And Strike, one of the best trap cards in the game for sure. You draw it with one of your blowout traps, and you can play going second. And that's what I really like about Strike is there's a little section of your traps which are just like good go second traps. Strike is sort of part of that, and I'll bring up Strike again later in the deck profile. And the next card, which apparently some people don't know about, so I'll sort of explain it. 2 Huge Revolution is over. So this card is sort of good. You don't have to play this. I will say that this list isn't fully optimized to like the best Gren Maju can be, and there's definitely some changes you can make with it. This is something you don't have to play, but if you don't know what this card does, essentially when a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated that would destroy 2 or more cards on the field, you negate it and banish it, and it's a spell speed 3 because it's a counter trap. So if they activate Destroy Phoenix Enforcer, you just Huge Revolution is over, banish the Destroy Phoenix Enforcer, and they can't really respond because it is a counter trap. So it's a good way to out DPE, which normally would shred through a deck like this if you don't have like Lord of the Heavenly Prison, or just a good way to out him in general. This can be a massive out. This also stops things like Break Sword, which is irrelevant for the Phantom Knight matchup. It stops things like Feather Duster, Lightning Storm. It stops a few things. I had it come up against a Torrential as well while I was swarming the field against Altergeist. They went ahead and activated Torrential, and I had the Huge Revolution is over. So it definitely came up, and it was a good card, but I often drew this and Lord of the Heavenly Prison at the same time, and they conflicted. I don't think you have to play this card, but this card is just so good at dealing with Destroy Phoenix Enforcer. So if your locals has a lot of that, maybe you do want to play it. It's an interesting card. And now for our blowout traps. I wanted to play a lot of like blowout traps that were good going first or second. And if you're playing a very heavy trap deck like this, you have to be able to play going second. So of course we run the best go second trap cards that just blow out our opponent. So we're running the 3 Torrential. If you draw any of these in combination with Strike, it's usually very, very good. So the 3 Torrential, very obvious. You're going to max out on this in your trap deck. We're playing 2 Storming Mirror Force. On my last list, I was actually on 3 of this, but I cut 1 for the next card, and I took another slot out for another one. So to add on to more of the blowouts, 2 Witch's Strike, and this card was amazing. It's sort of gimmicky and won't happen all the time, so you don't really see it often, but essentially if your opponent negates one of your card effects or a summon, you can activate this and destroy all cards on their field and in their hand. So I was playing against Altergeist this weekend, and I normal summoned Inspector Border, and he Solemn Judgmented the summon. Makes sense because that deck can't really deal with Inspector Border very well. And then I just Witch's Striked him for 8 cards. He like lost 4 cards on his field and like 3 or 4 cards in hand. And this was just the blowout that won me the game entirely. And when you look at the format as it is right now before the ban list, which will probably come out the day I'm uploading this, which will be Monday. So if the ban list came out today, I'm just very upset. But still getting uploaded. When you look at the format as it currently is, Bird Up has Apex Avian and F-Zero, which both negate activations. Tri-Brigade sometimes has Appaloosa, which can negate activations. You look at a deck like Alistair with Mechaba, negates activations. And then you look at Sword Soul, they have Baron, which negates activations. So against every single deck in the meta, Witch's Strike can be activated to a pretty good use, and it just absolutely blows out people, and they're not really expecting it. Like, if they summon Baron and you activate Torrential and they negate, you can just Witch's Strike the Sword Soul player, and they probably lose right there. They're not ready for their whole hand to be destroyed, right? So this card came in clutch. It was absolutely phenomenal. I didn't really draw it very dead. I mean, there were some times I couldn't use it, but it was because I was winning and they couldn't set up anything to negate my card. So yeah, it was a very, very good card this weekend. Surprisingly, it's another card I don't think you have to play because there could be better slots you want to run, but yeah, I chose Witch's Strike as a blowout card. Then some just like generic good traps. We have 2 Ice Dragon's Prison and 2 Dogmatica Punishment. So these were just like really good traps, but we weren't playing 3 of them because these are once per turn, and I wanted to sort of limit my chance to draw multiples of this in my opening hand. But of course, both of these traps just get 2 resources from your opponent, which I think is what you have to do in these trap decks, because if you don't draw floodgates like Inspector Border or you know, there can be only one, you're going to have to trade your traps for their monsters. And monsters normally have like effects engrave, or you know, they generate more advantage through more monsters. So your traps have to trade positive to be good. And Ice Dragon's Prison and Punishment net you essentially 2 resources for 1 card. So these are just really good traps that can, you know, handle trading with monster decks. So these are very good. And I took out Compulse sort of for the reason I'm saying it doesn't trade as well as these cards. So I wanted to play these as sort of just my generic good trap cards that can bait interruptions for like strike, and they're good going first or second. So we really liked these. And then for the floodgates of the deck, everyone's favorite fun section here, we have 3. There can be only one because this card is obscene. This card is just so dirty. I opened this and Inspector Border against the Altergeist player. It's just like there's nothing he can do. It was very, very fun. Definitely a lot of skill happened in that game where I drew Inspector Border and there can be only one. But this card dominates birds. This card dominates Sword Soul. It's just a very, very good card versus so many decks in the meta. It's really good versus Phantom Knight. It just shuts decks down. And if you can play it and you're running a very trap heavy focused deck, this is definitely a card you want to consider playing. And then we play 3 of that Floodgate specifically because it's good going first or second. And then we were on 2 summon limit. It's definitely more of a go first Floodgate, but I mean, if you have this and they don't have an out to it, you often just win the game with this card, so we definitely wanted to play it. And then the last card in the main deck is Imperial Order. I mean, Imperial Order is absolutely obscene and should be banned. Hopefully a list came out today that banned this card, but I doubt it, so definitely playing the Imperial Order. And then the extra deck, definitely not optimized. You can do whatever you want to this extra deck. You're essentially playing Waking the Dragon targets if you choose to play that card, and Dogmatica Punishment targets. So we have 3 Elder Entity Natis. I'll just go through this extra deck pretty quick. You're of course playing this for punishment. We have 1 Last Warrior, 1 Bakuri box, because if I was in a winning position, I wanted to summon this off Waking the Dragon and be funny, but you should probably play literally anything else in the game over this card. 1 5-headed, 1 Dragon Master Knight, just 5k punishment targets. And I played them because they're cool and nostalgic, I guess. 2 Wind Pegasus. You're running Extravagant, so if all my Natises get banished, we have Wind Pegasus at least. Ferrijit to fix bad hands. 1 Unchained Abomination. I played this as a Waking the Dragon target because I didn't have an Exterio. 1 Pentastag, because if they're walling up on defense, you can just turn some monsters into Pentastag, summon Gren Maju, and just pierce them for game. 1 Omega, again, good for punishment. 1 Fossil Warrior Skull Knight, again, same reasoning. And then lastly, we play 1 rank 8. You should definitely be running the Dragublion, that's a weird word, and the what is it, number 100, the card that gets to like 9k attack and goes for game. I don't own it, so this is the only rank 8 we played that, you know, was also sort of a Waking the Dragon target. So yep, that is it for the extra deck. To go through the side deck a little bit, I hope my entire side deck still hear what I played. This again definitely could have some more tuning if you wanted to play this deck. But I was on 2 King Tiger. This was like the best card ever. I played against an Evil Twin. That was the other deck I ended up playing against. So we summoned this against Evil Twin. He just literally can't summon any monster in his deck. If I happen to play against birds or flew under Rees, this card stops them entirely. This card just kills Phantom Knights. This card's actually insane. And I really wanted to play it, which is one of the reasons I actually played this deck, is I wanted to play King Tiger. 1 Dyna, because I had 1 extra slot, so it's another good card going first. And then our going second stuff, we had 3 Lava Golem for obvious reasons. We need to break boards going second, so we can establish our traps and try to win that way. And then we have 2 Sphere Mode, and I usually, when I sided in all of these, I also sided in Alphas, because these, you can't really normal summon using them, so I wanted a big monster I could play alongside them, and Alpha's pretty good at breaking boards himself, so definitely wasn't a slouch in that department. And then, you know, for any back row decks, we had 3 Heavy Storm Duster. Again, this is not an optimized side deck, but it is what we were using, and it worked out pretty well. And then 2 Waking the Dragons, which never procced, and it never actually procs, but I wanted to play it, so yeah, that is it for the Gren Maju deck. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to wait a second. Wait, I almost forgot the hand test. So I'm going to go into a quick hand test for you guys, and you'll get to see how this deck sort of plays. Alright, so here we have a deck we're shuffling right now. The camera is definitely zoomed in a little too much, but we're going to draw a hand, and I wouldn't be surprised if this hand's just 5 traps, and that's sometimes what the deck does. So we're going to give the deck a quick cut, I guess. And we'll go into our hand here, which is going to be Solemn Judgment. I'm telling you, this card's a magnet for me. Solemn Strike. There can be only one. Yes, you can tell this deck is very fun. Called by the Grave. Inspector Border? Solemn Strike. So this is a hand of course, we can't actually play, but it is very hard for our opponent to play as well. Storming Mirror Force, so that would be the hand if we're going second. Let's go ahead and get another and see if we can draw Inspector Border, maybe. But we're just going to do one more test hand. Yeah, sometimes you definitely just draw like 5 traps, and that's how the deck works. That's how it was sort of intended to work. Again, they didn't release the ban list, and I was like, alright, I'm going to play something absolutely disgusting. And this is what I came up with, so let's go ahead, and I guess we'll give it a quick cut once again. Sort of see what we got going here. Huge Revolution is over, so, you know, we're not afraid of too many things. Witch's Strike, Torrential Tribute. Alright, this could be actually really good. Inspector Border, and Dogmatica Punishment. So this is an alright hand going first. What I like about it is we can just summon Inspector Border and probably shut down their whole deck, and we have Punishment to protect it. But like going second into something, you can set Torrential and Witch's Strike. Or even going first, you can just set Torrentials and Witch's Strike, and like they go full combo. Like say they're playing Sword Soul, they go full combo, they make their Baron, and you just flip Torrential, they negate, and then you're like, okay, Witch's Strike, and you probably just win the game, and that's just as easy as it gets. So yeah, this is sort of the hands the deck gets. If you want to know how to play it, very easy. You summon Border, and you set 4 cards, and that's how you play this deck. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. This section was sort of memey because, like, what did you expect? It's Trap Gren. There's not much to learn here. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the deck. If you did, leave a like, subscribe. Check out our other deck profiles if you're interested in that. Leave a like, subscribe. I feel like I said that like 6 times, but regular old YouTuber things. Hope you guys enjoyed, and see you next time.